My grandpa was a sailor back when he was my age, and apparently the boat that he was on required him to put coals into the furnace, and I can only imagine how fucking hot it must have been. I also don't understand why the boat would require that around the 1950s. I would think that only 70 years ago they already had engines that kind of just ran on oil or something. But yeah, grandpa apparently worked as a coaler, that's what the profession was called, fueling the ship with coals by hand. And obviously working a job like that makes you incredibly strong. And even now, when he's 96, he is super fucking strong. And I have no clue how, because I thought people after 80 or something kind of just stop being strong and then go all old, they go, oh, I need help. But no, my grandpa, he's tough, doesn't require a lot of help, just kind of sits there. He just exists. See, I tried grabbing a chair from him once to help him, but he grabbed it back with so much force that I was surprised. I really can't see him being frail or weak ever. And I can't even imagine a life like that. We've all grown up to think something along the lines of go to school, get a degree, work at a big company, and it's all just impersonal office work. And what I mean by impersonal office work is that your work likely is very hard to see any tangible effect in the real world. See, your work might get your company a certain amount of profit, but it's not like your work will result in something simpler, something that you can actually see or feel. It usually will just be something abstract. See, when we work hard at our offices, we sit in the front of our computer all day, and then nothing has changed from the beginning until the end of the day. At least not in the real world. You look around at 9 a.m. and the office space looks a certain way, and when you clock off at 5 p.m. it's still the same. But that wasn't the case in my grandpa's time. While he was working, he could actually see that they went from point A to point B in their big ship, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there. I think that his work felt very satisfying for him, at least. I couldn't imagine it right now because I don't live that life, but I can only imagine that he felt that. And the times were hard. They apparently didn't even have something simple like fridges because that was invented in the, I don't know, 1960s or something. Yeah, I'm not sure. They still had to salt their food to preserve it. It's actually insane to think about how fast technology has progressed. So why am I telling you this? Well, I wanted to tell you a story of when I was younger with my grandpa, and I had a sleepover at my grandpa's place. So when I was around 6, my parents left me at his place, and grandpa meant really well, but I couldn't handle a bunch of things. I think that was the first time that I was conscious, at least, that I did not sleep at my own home. When you're younger, sleeping somewhere that's not your own bed is already a big thing. The ceiling is different, the lighting is different, the feeling of the bed and the pillows, it's all different. And now that I'm older, it doesn't really matter that those things change every now and then. It might even be a welcome change. But as a little kid, all those things added up, and I just felt like I couldn't sleep at all. Everything was scary and different, and my parents weren't anywhere near as well. It just felt wrong. So the day after, we woke up and grandpa tried to make me one of his favorite drinks, but it was corn juice. He just took corn and juiced it. It's just the juice of a bunch of corn, and then he put it in a glass. I don't even remember whether or not it was sweet. All I remember was the overwhelming taste of liquid corn, and I did not feel good about drinking that. And we had this lunch where my grandpa gave me dim sum. So just a heads up, dim sum is Hong Kong style food, which is where my grandpa originally came from. I'm already familiar with this food, and I even have a couple of favorite dishes, even when I was that little. So my favorite dish at the time is lopako. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments. That'll be nuts. I expect no one to know this except maybe one person. So my grandpa ordered this dish because I asked for it. I said, oh, I really like this. And he said, okay, we'll get you that. But then he got me a slightly different version. Instead of it being white and brown crispy, it was a weird yellowish honey-like color. And I thought, oh, that's weird. Well, I'll eat it because it looks similar. So I took a bite and it was sweet. It was overwhelmingly sweet. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find the specific dish. Maybe you guys know it. So I still don't know to this day what I ate, but it threw me off and it made me incredibly sad. It's like you ask for your ice cream, but then you get a broccoli. Because my preferences back then were that I like salty food more than I like sweet food. And I still do now. Salty food's just the best. But yeah, I didn't know how I could communicate it properly to my grandpa either, because all I remember was him saying something like, yeah, that's what you wanted, isn't it? Well, I didn't know what to say. I was just overwhelmed overwhelmed with everything that's changed. So we come back from our lunch and we call my mom because at the time I did that every day. And this was during a time where smartphones were in the thing. So what I would do was I would just sit at phone because it was a phone that you would have physically sit next to in order to call. Having a phone literally in your hand while you're anywhere was at the time incredibly weird. But yeah, she asked me how everything was and I immediately started crying and saying that I wanted to go home. And even to this day, I still get reminders every now and then that that's a thing that happened. So my parents pick me up a bit later and I go home. And honestly, that's the end of the story. But it's a memory that stayed with me even until now. Now, it's a lot clearer what's actually happened afterwards. Grandpa didn't know what I liked and Grandpa didn't have the things that I would like. Things like toys or even a TV connection. I couldn't watch my favorite TV shows, for example, like things that was on, I think, Jetix at the time or Fox Kids. I'm not sure. I don't think they had Disney XD back in the day. Yes, I am a dinosaur. But all I remember was that Grandpa only had these Chinese channels on his TV and I can't understand them because it's very difficult Chinese. You have to be a fluent adult to understand what they're saying, or they were just boring nature documentaries, you know? So I couldn't understand any of his TV, nor could I say that they were entertaining to just watch. And thinking about it, my parents picking me up the day after is just insane. My grandpa didn't live next door. My grandpa lived about a 2-hour drive away from me. It's a 2-hour drive one way, by the way. So this means that they drove me there, then drove back home, and then the day after drove back there again to pick me up and then back home again. That's 8 hours in total. What the fuck? My parents are crazy for actually doing that. But yeah, now I see what they wanted to do for me and my grandpa. I feel like me crying at least could have been prevented somehow, but I'm not sure. At least I think that it's out of my control because I was a literal 6-year-old. Well, in the end, it's a funny memory. If you have a similar story where you just started crying because of your grandparents, even though they meant well, let me know in the comments. Well, that was all for me. See you in the next video.